Hi everyone, it's the Rangers review. I think we're live. We are live. We're here at Ibrox. We're going to try and speak very loud over this PA. Myself and Chris Jack here to look ahead to Rangers against Celtic in the Scottish Premiership. It's the Old Firm, Chris. It's always a big game. I hate that cliche because we can't say it when it actually is a big game. The teams will be out in about 5-10 minutes, but we've spoken about it all week. You've slept. You told me you were quite relaxed when you woke up. General feelings about this one?
Can we get away with using the big game cliche? Can we get away with
I think we can today.
Can we get away with using the must-win game cliche? I know that's probably 2 strikes on your book of cliches. Many more to come in the watches and reading my stuff over the next couple of hours. You can't underestimate the importance of this 90 minutes, or can you? It speaks for itself in terms of the occasion and obviously a title race. Hearts continue to do their bit. They continue to pick up the wins. If Rangers want to be in this title race, now, to use that old cliche, I think this is a must-win for them. But if they lose today, it feels like a very, very long way back. I think there has been a confidence in the Rangers camp over this week. I think they, without being too bullish and too bombastic about it, I think they fancy their chances. I think they realise that this is a game that they are more than capable of winning. You take a bit of confidence, obviously, from the Parkhead game. Look at where both teams are. I think Rangers are right to fancy their chances, but in an Old Firm game, anything is possible to use. But I don't want our book of cliches.
That's three in your first answer.
Is that 3 strikes and I'm out? I'll just pass the mic over to Blair.
I tell you who else is feeling it is the PA controller in here, because it is very loud. Hopefully people can hear us. A reminder of the table, Chris, and the circumstance of today. Hearts obviously won yesterday. They're on 63 points. Rangers in second place on 56. Celtic in third on 54, but they have a game in hand. Motherwell in fourth on 53, just 3 points behind Rangers. That's why it's must win for me today, because see, even if you look at the wins and the draws and the losses of the top 4 teams, Rangers have drawn 11 games. Hearts have drawn 6. Celtic have drawn 3. They have lost 7. Motherwell have drawn 11. They've lost 3. This is these next 2 weeks, I think, are an opportunity for Rangers to take the ascendancy and take the opportunities there for them. But the confidence that you speak of, yeah, I've sensed that too. And, you know, sometimes that could be a strange feeling going into Old Firm games. Rangers haven't lost to Celtic in the league in a year and a half, which feels quite remarkable given the record that was there beforehand. But there will be confidence in this fixture. The press conferences on Friday, Danny Rule, Nico Raskin, what do you make of they had to say? There was a little bit of some minor Old Firm mind games, war of words, I think is too strong. But certainly I think both sets of press conferences anticipated, as you say, the fact that whoever wins today will be on top of the world. Whoever loses will not want to go out of their house tomorrow morning.
War of words is our 4th cliche of the morning already. I thought it was all a bit of a
You've seen worse. You've heard worse.
Certainly seen and heard worse. I felt a bit much of a muchness. I don't really see why people have really bought into it as much. I don't think there was any great mind games there from Danny Rule. To say that the Celtic goalkeeping situation is interesting is more a statement of fact than it is playing mind games. You look at the form that Schmeichel has been in. Also, Sinisalo came in midweek in that game that they won. Danny Rule was slightly bemused, if you like, or made the point that he was surprised Celtic didn't go and try and win it by a bit more. Yeah. I'm slightly surprised that Martin O'Neill bit as much. A man of his years in the game here. I was surprised that he nibbled at what Danny Rule dangled in that press conference. I don't think the manager was being trying to be too clever. I don't think he was trying to play mind games. It was fairly throwaway comments in 13, 14 minutes he spoke to you guys on Friday morning. So of course anything he says about Celtic is obviously going to generate a bit more traffic and certainly a bit more social media traffic. But I don't think he was trying anything too outrageous. And Old Firm press conference terms, it was all a bit tame, but it's giving people extra talking points.
Yeah, I'm not sitting on my phone. I'm just waiting for the team to drop in case anyone thinks I'm not wholly invested in what Chris
just in case you're just ignoring me.
Just too distracted. Now, let's speak about, before the teams drops, Chris, a few bits of news. Kyle Glasgow signed his professional contract, which obviously is news that we had about a month or so now ago, but that's an exciting deal. We're going to have more on that in the coming week on the website. Josh Gentle's also signed an extension until 2027. Parag Marathi, story you had on Friday night, stepped down as Rangers vice chairman. Bring us up to speed with what's happened, the ramifications of that story you broke.
when is a day off not a day off when you're dealing with Rangers. In practical terms, I don't think it means that much. As a paperwork exercise, I think, for Rangers. If Leeds had not reached this stage of the FA Cup, if Leeds had been knocked out of the third round of the FA Cup, it wouldn't even have been a thing. But they couldn't afford to run that risk. So the UEFA deadline for submissions is the 1st of March. People will be aware of the Crystal Palace situation and how that unfolded. They also had a court case with CAS that they eventually lost and played Conference League football rather than Europa League football. So neither Rangers or Leeds wanted to take that risk. In practical terms, Andrew Cavara has had a real say in how this club has been run over the last few months. And he's been increasingly hands-on. We know Jim Gillespie will take up his position as chief exec in the next couple of weeks. He will work very closely with Fraser Thornton. That's the three main decision makers. That's the three guys that are really getting things done on a day-to-day basis before you then go into the comms team and the marketing team and commercial, other finance and other executive appointments round about there. So in day-to-day running terms, I don't think it makes a massive deal of difference the fact that Parag Marat is no longer vice chairman. People that I spoke to on Friday stressed the investment plan does not change. The plan for what they want to do with this club does not change. The 49ers investment in it does not change. So I get why it was a headline, but I think people really have to look at what it actually means in the grand scheme of things. It's not going to change that. It's not going to change that much.
You say that with it's not multi-club ownership. UEFA have this regulation. I think it's Regulation 5 within a rule book I've not read, which states that it's to do when there's I guess financial interest in different clubs. Everyone will know what happened with Crystal Palace. John Textor, I think, is the name of was he the Leon owner? He was a Leon shareholder and a shareholder in Crystal Palace. That meant that they couldn't then play in the conference, in the Europa League, had to drop to the Conference League. So, yeah, that's the top line. Anything else that happened over the last couple of days? Kyle Glasgow signed his deal as well. As I say, we'll have more on the website on that in the next couple of days. But certainly, people I speak to, Chris, there's always you have to not build young players up too much, right? Because you don't want to put too much pressure on them. But there's real excitement about this kid, not only because of how he plays, but because people think he's got a mature head on his shoulders. And because there was no shortage of interest to take him elsewhere, but he's chosen to stay at Rangers. And I'm actually going to stop making that point because Blair is telling me the Rangers team is out. Let's get through it. I think I've got 11 out of 11 here. I have delighted. Butland in goals, Sterling, Suter, Fernandez, Romans, Chukwani, Raskin, Moore, Scott Olsen, Shermiti, Nadiri. 4-2-2-2. Same team as Roland Rangers went with against Hearts. The bench is Kelly, Magoma, Giga, Tavernier, Asgard, Bayrami, Kasama, Diamande, and Miovski. Chris, no surprises?
When I was sitting at Charing Cross waiting to pick you up, Blair jumped in the car and we're chatting away about the game and he said, how would you go? What's your team? And I kept changing my mind on it over the last couple of days. I said, I watched the video that you guys have with Adam Thornton the other day there.
Thank you.
And every time one of you made a point, I thought, that's a very good point. I agree with you. And then I saw Blair's team and also with the midfield three, and I couldn't decide whether it was right to sacrifice the extra striker and go with Diomande in the middle of the park as well, or whether it's just go 4-2-2-2 and say we're the home team. This game's here to.
What's the word I'm looking for? Go for the jugular.
I'm pleased he's gone for it. I think if you had held a gun to my head and said pick 11 names, the 11 names that Danny Rowe has gone for is the 11 names that I would have gone for. So I think that's the right call. Celtic have their own defensive struggles when you're just about to read it their side. That's a Celtic side I think they can be beaten, they can be got at. Are Celtic good enough to cause Rangers problems? I think we saw that in the first half at Parkhead. Clearly they are. But if you can start well, if you can get on the front foot, now Danny Rowe mentioned after the Hearts game that was the first time Ibrox felt like Ibrox. If Rangers can start well, score early, and really grab the momentum in this game, the roof is going to come off this place, and that again plays a real factor for both sides. So I think that's a starting lineup that will meet with a lot of approval round about here and should hopefully feed into that feel-good factor.
Yeah, we'll get back to talk through some of the different position by position in that team. But I'll read you the Celtic team. The headline is that Kasper Schmeichel isn't even on the bench. He's not on the bench. So whether that's injury related or not, don't know. Sinisalo is in goals. Araujo, pardon me, at right back. Then Murray, Liam Scales, Kieran Tierney complete the back four. It's a midfield three of McGregor, Oxlade, Chamberlain, and Nigrin, Yang, Maeda, and Adamu. up top. So Celtic sticking their 4-3-3. Dane Murray comes in as I guess the headline alongside Sinisalo. Negrin's Celtic's real danger man, scored 18 goals this year. Oxley Chamberlain, everyone knows he's a player of quality, although he's had his injury issues as well. But Celtic, I guess, in their own sense, going for it as well. But let's go back to the Rangers team, Chris. That's what we're here to talk about. Danny Rule said in his press conference that he didn't know if Dujon Sterling and Ryan Deere would make it. I think that was a little bit of not tempting expectations. I think we've kind of been consistent all week with a belief that Dujon Sterling would play, would be fine to play. Sensible. No arguments there for me. I think he deserves to play ahead of James Tavernier, and like two Robins on the other flank. I think it's two fullbacks who give you a lot of legs going forward. I think Rangers will try and play this game like they did against Hearts and go for it, as we say. But looking at the Dujon Sterling and the Ryan Adiri calls, not surprised to see them in.
No, not at all. I know the manager mentioned a couple of weeks ago that there was a mystery player that was potentially out for that game at the weekend, another mystery player that potentially out for a couple of weeks, and that also then brought the Old Firm game into sharp focus. So we understood at that time that none of those two issues were overly serious. I think both players at that time were confident that they would make it here this afternoon. You have to say it's a huge boost that both of them are. If Nadiri's not fit, I think that probably takes the 4-2-2-2 out of your equation. I don't think Gomiowski and Chermiti. I think Miowski plays that role very differently to Ryan Nadiri. You expect him to really go and get in about that Celtic centre half pair and to go and try and drag them into areas that they don't want to be in. It's a big afternoon for him. Clearly, he's never played in an occasion anywhere near this. But I think what we've seen so far from what we've said about him and what we've kind of learned and what we've written about, not a guy that's going to be overly phased by this type of occasion. He seems to have a real, not a cockiness, but a belief that he is almost made for a game like this. So I think he could be a big player for Rangers today. And if Chermiti fancies another Old Firm double, I would continue this record of only scoring in big games.
Do you know what's strange, Chris, is I feel, well, in theory, you feel more confident about Yusuf Chermiti in this game than if it was like Livingston away last week, which is a bit of an anomaly. But as you say, I don't think anyone will complain if he does score. Rangers, I wrote about this yesterday on the website. Rangers are a big team now. When Danny Rule came into the club, I don't think that was the case. Points earlier in the season, I don't think that was the case. Mikey Moore and Nico Raskin, the only players under 6 foot in that team. And neither of those players are players who you think are going to be bullied off the ball, both robust in their own way. Raskin, we know, is threat from set pieces. That's going to be a factor today as well, because I think Rangers did that against Hearts. Hearts are a team who have physically bullied opponents. I thought Rangers did that to them, and I think you will see with these two strikers, Rangers try to not only go forward directly, but make this a game of duels and make Celtic play on the back foot. Callum McGregor is always a factor in these games, and Rangers have had some of their better games when they've man-marked him out of it. I guess that the equation Danny Rule is formulating is he thinks his side have a better chance of winning if they go for it and make Celtic play in the back foot, maybe instead of reacting to them so much in midfield. Your thoughts on that?
I think it feeds into a point that you made after the Motherwell game at Fir Park last night. A lot of comment and a lot of criticism of the manager. But you said that night that Rangers played the game on Motherwell's terms. You can't afford to do that, and you can't afford to do that in any game that Rangers play in. An Old Firm game, you can't allow Celtic to come here and dictate it. It has clearly not
in the circumstance.
Not given everything that's on the agenda today. And I mentioned that the Ibrox factor there. If the first 10-15 minutes Celtic that are knocking about and the game's played at their tempo, the game's played in the Rangers half, it's Celtic that got most of the chances. This crowd, as much as it can be a huge advantage for you, then turns against you. So it's really important that Rangers go and try and assert themselves early and play the game that they want to play. Be direct when they want to be direct. I think the manager mentioned that after Hearts or the Kelly game actually,
it was both
almost urging the fans to have a wee bit of game knowledge, a bit of game management themselves, and knowing that it can't just be gung ho for 90 minutes. So if you do see a couple of passes being knocked about the back, they're just regrouping, they're resetting.
Relax.
Don't expect everything just to get shelled forward for the entire 90 minutes. As much as we might like it, it might be exciting. So I think the more that people see a Danny Rule side in action, the more that they listen to him, I think the greater understanding they have of what he's actually trying to do with this side. This will also be the biggest test of it yet. It's a very different occasion than the one at Parkhead. Rangers, that first half, the game completely played on Celtic's terms. They had the best of it. by a million miles, and Rangers could have been dead and buried at half time. Real credit to the manager for the way that he changed it, credit to the players for the way that they changed it. Hopefully we don't get 45 minutes in and it's a similar situation of Rule having to go and try and pull a rabbit out of the hat, or having to go and make a sub to try and change it. Hopefully Rangers assert themselves really early on in this one.
Yeah, in hindsight, there's always a risk of, if Celtic do get those three in midfield playing, they look back and say, "Oh dear man, they should have started." I'm one of his biggest advocates, I think, on the channel, and I think he's unfortunate not to start. However, I think Rule would attract more criticism in hindsight if he didn't go for it than if he was a bit more conservative and that didn't work out. But I had a conversation with someone this week who was making the point that this is a big thing for Rule. He made it after the Hearts game as well, where he needs the crowd to show patience. I asked him a question about that on Friday's press conference. He said, "I think a big part of our development is we know how we want to play forward. We want to attack. For me, it's not necessary to prepare the next chance with 100 passes. I've said this many times, but sometimes you have to move the opponent in one space so you can attack the other space. Generally, it's important we have our vertical possession in mind so we don't play backwards. We can do this, stick to the principle, we make good decisions." What he is, I think, articulating there in relevant terms to the pitch, Chris, is the mistake that Rangers make for the Hearts opening goal here a couple of weeks ago. They're not just playing it around the back for playing it around the back's sake. Now, it's an error, it's bad, criticise it, of course, but it's because they need to try and trigger the opposition to move, to play into space quicker than them. But giving you the two strikers also allows you to, at points, just go, right, let's get into our forward players as quickly as possible. But you're right, what Rule has done so well so far is he's used the crowd, he's used the feeling of the stands for him and not against him, as we saw at the start of this season. And just to finish on that crowd point, that will be huge today, won't it?
That first Old Firm game here at the start of the season feels like such a long time ago. A dreadful afternoon and a dreadful few weeks, a dreadful couple of months. The fact that Rangers are even heading into this game with a shot at the title in itself is remarkable. You mentioned earlier on that in 11 draws, how different would life have been if they hadn't picked up so many in those first weeks? So much damage done in those opening weeks of the season. Danny Rule has done an awful lot to repair an awful lot of that damage, but when you get yourself in this situation, I think we've seen that last couple of weeks, people don't want to hear, well, we were 12, we were 11, we were 10 points behind. At this stage, you say, well, we're now 4, can we go and win the league? And if Rangers are not 4 after this, I think it's very, very difficult for them to then go on and win the league. So, as we said right at the top, it just speaks for itself in terms of importance for so many reasons.
Yeah. We'll finish on kind of individuals.
You're going to ask me for score prediction now, aren't you?
I don't even know what to, because you're right. These games are so hard to predict. That I think what we see with those teams is that Rangers feel confident that they can go for it, which is refreshing to see, and I think the right decision. But I was going to ask you about a couple of individuals. Andreas Skov-Olsen, to start with him. This is the type of game he was signed for, Chris, and I know that some people wouldn't have started him in this game. Famous last words, but I would because I think you've signed him for these games, and while he's not been unbelievable so far, he should in theory have a moment of quality that can turn this game. Is he if I was to pick out one player, is he the one that you think his performance will be the most influential, or is it someone in the midfield? Is it Nico Raskin? Is it Benji Trimiti up top?
I think Olsen could have the biggest impact if he can find the form that we all believe he was capable of. It's been a bit low key so far, hasn't it? I think we all give him the first couple of weeks to say, well, he's not played a lot of football and he has to settle in, he has to get up to speed. But you then look at Chukwani, really impressive so far. Romans, really impressive so far. Nadiri, like what I've seen from him. So the guy that we've had the most headlines about, the guy that we spoke about, the guy that we're most excited about, has arguably been the most underwhelming one of the 4 so far. No time like the present for that to change.
Yeah.
He's clearly got the quality to be a game changer, to be a match winner. It's been a bit low key so far, but if he fancies it this afternoon, he could well be the best player on the park. He should be the best player on the park, given his profile and given everything about him. Time will tell if that's the case or not.
Time will tell. Before we go, a reminder, our live show tickets are fast sale now. It's on the 10th of April, I think. The links are in the description. They're also on the website too. All 6 of us are going to be there for what should be an excellent night at New Edmondson House. So do get your tickets for that. We'll be live on the final whistle. Derek and Johnny are going to be giving you their immediate reaction. Myself and Chris will be back a little bit later. As ever, We're bringing you the best Rangers journalism every day of the week. You can help support us by subscribing to the website. That is the best way to help make our coverage bigger and better. And subscribe for free, of course, on YouTube as well. Until then, enjoy the game wherever you are watching it. We'll speak to you later. From myself and Chris, bye for now.